From a certain time and place. Okinawa, 1945. After my father's funeral at the VA cemetery in Rockland County, I joined his wife and friends at the American Legion Hall in Nyack. Over burgers and fries, the men related Dad's stories of his time as a Seabee on Okinawa in 1945. He'd almost been court-martialed for leaving his duties to check out the front lines. I'd never heard that tale, just about the smell of dead bodies. Some stories soldiers only tell each other, one vet said to me. With Dad, I could never separate truth from fable. Anyway, as Dad once declared, his addled mother threw away all his military records, so who can ever know what the truth is? An Alternative History of Jack Ruby, 1963. Jack Ruby channeled his rage at JFK's assassination into acts of civic goodness. His gruff exterior hit a heart as big as Texas. Ruby became a Boy Scout leader, an inspiring teacher at his Temple's Hebrew School, and he fostered baby kittens. He converted the fabled Carousel Club into a studio for Latin ballroom and jazz dance lessons, along with after-hours pole dancing. Eager to influence the leaders of tomorrow, Ruby invited generations of kids to pole dance and tall Texas tales to hear yarns about responsibility, liberty, and the Bill of Rights, all told with lots of laughs and fabulous costumes. When Ruby died, President Bobby Kennedy and First Lady Marilyn Monroe both spoke at his funeral. Last one. Roughing It in New Mexico, 1973. So the background of this is 50 years ago this August, I spent a week at Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico with other Boy Scouts. We took a school bus from the Rio Grande Valley of Texas to Philmont, then hit the trails. Back home, I wrote about the trip. Reading the piece a half-century later, I found these striking passages. Starting at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio for the night. We started talking with some black airmen, and one happened to be an Eagle Scout from North Carolina. Also, he was the chief of his OA, which Order of the Arrow area, and had attended the 69 Jamboree. All he could say was, "Man, I sure had fun in scouting." He was so enthusiastic it took 10 minutes before we could leave. He says he might want to be a scoutmaster once his hitch is up. The next leg of our trip was from San Antonio to Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo for lunch, then on to Carlsbad Caverns. The scenery up to San Angelo was nice, but then it pretty well flattened out. From here to Philmont, most of the way was of dry, almost uninhabited rolling land. And impressed is a huge, vast zip on the map. It was hard to imagine a place so big and empty, mile after mile. Another item that struck me was, who would have come out to string and erect all these phone poles? They just run all over the place. Well, I suppose somebody lives way out there. August 11th, camp at Apache Springs. This place had the best program along with Minor Park. The Indian culture, teepees, corn grinding, arrow making, and Indian sauna really interested me. My crew ground corn. We cooked the ground corn up and nobody would eat the slop. August 16th, back to base camp. It was hot and my mouth dried up badly. At long last, we made it. We all flopped down on the side of the shower building. After recovering, we went to Tent City, checked in tents and cooking gear, then just messed around. It's hard to describe the feeling of relaxation, all capital letters, at base, especially after a nice though cold shower. I bought a drink, then patches, a belt buckle, and a neckerchief slide. We ate in the mess hall, then got our arrowheads that night at a campfire. So, I kept the conclusion of this travelogue short. I skipped over the manly pushing and shoving and snarling that sometimes broke out on the bus. I wrote, the next morning we had the continental breakfast, packed and left. The entire trip home was rather long and boring. We stopped in Lubbock and at Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio. Thank you.